Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our latest Ask the Leaders Facebook Live Q&A. Some of you will already know that the Council has held a number of the Facebook Live sessions now, covering a wide range of topics from the latest public health information to the gradual reopening of the city. This week, we're delighted to be joined by representatives from the further education and skills sector in York to discuss further education and career options for people leaving school this year. Today, we'll be focusing on the next steps for young people who have finished secondary school this year following the announcement of their GCSE grades. As we'll all appreciate, the last few months have been extremely difficult for those students who have not been able to spend this period in the structured and safe environment of their schools. The mental and developmental impact of this cannot be underestimated, and that's why we're so thankful and grateful to all the teachers for their fantastic work, as well as all the general school staff, caretakers, teaching assistants and governors for all their hard work through COVID-19 and in the next few months. Speaking of future opportunities, apprenticeships and further education, we have been emphasising the importance of embedding this into the city's long-term recovery efforts. York's recovery plans highlight the Council's commitment to work with education providers and businesses to develop a workforce with skills fit for the new economy. The last few weeks in particular have clearly been confusing and difficult for many, and so I hope today we'll be able to provide some insight as to the many opportunities, advice and help out there for school leavers ready to start their new chapter in their lives. Now I'll stop there and just ask the panel to introduce themselves. I'll start. I'm Councillor Darryl Smalley and I'm City of York Council's Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities. Ian, would you mind?
Yep. Hello, Councillor Ian Cuthbertson. I'm the City of York Council's lead member for children, young people and education.
Thank you. Lee?
Good evening, I'm Lee Probert. I'm the Chief Executive and Principal at York College.
Thank you. Laurence?
Hi, I'm Laurence Beardmore. I run York Emporium. We're a coffee roaster based in York. I'm also the Vice President of York Chambers of Commerce.
Thank you very much. John? Oh, John, you're just on mute. We'll try and... Sorry, we'll just unmute you.
Let's get that. Okay. Hello, yes, I'm John Thompson and I work for City of York Council as Head of Secondary and Skills in the Education Service, and I was formerly a secondary head teacher for 9 years.
Thank you. Sandra?
Hello, Sandra Burnhill, Askham Bryan College. I'm Vice Principal at the college.
Thank you. Louisa?
Hello, I'm Louisa. I work for the FutureHY outreach programme, which is an impartial project funded by the Office for Students. We give impartial advice and guidance to young people.
Thank you. And last but not least, Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Watmore. I work in the skills team at the council. I do two parts of the job. I engage with businesses across the city to explain and help them through the process of recruiting apprentices, and I also therefore reach out to schools doing assemblies, careers events and advising advisors and students in schools about the opportunities in the city.
Brilliant, thank you so much. For those that haven't watched one of our Facebook Live Q&As before, we do ask residents to submit questions in advance. Today we are, however, starting with some quite broad themes, but please don't forget that you can ask a question in the comment section and we'll try our best to pick these up as we go along. The first very broad theme today to start to cover is post-school options. So sort of what options are there out there currently for post-16 and post-18? I don't know who wants to sort of jump in first. Yep, John.
Okay, so you know, we always say that we think the York residents are really fortunate in that they have a really top class set of options available to them. We've got 5 school sixth forms, which are very high performing. We've got an outstanding general FE college at York College, which also has Institute of Technology status and provides a huge range of courses, both academic, vocational and technical, as well as supporting the apprenticeship agenda. We've got a specialist land-based college out at Askham Bryan, which attracts young people from all over the country and specialises in a huge range of environmentally linked courses, which range from stuff like grassing stadiums through to animal care. So it's really quite a hidden resource that most people don't know about, the range of stuff that they do there. And then we've got a range of training providers across the city who provide other education and training opportunities for young people at different levels, and specifically most of them linking to apprenticeships, which of course is an employed option for young people moving into jobs, getting paid whilst undertaking qualifications alongside it. And both colleges are also involved in providing the training element there. And then we've got Louisa here representing Higher York, and we've got two universities based in York, as well as higher education provision available in the FE colleges. So a really, really comprehensive range of options out there for young people. And I can confidently say there's a lot of people there who can help you out if you are looking for your next option and your next destination.
Thank you, John. And I know my options were changing by the minute, especially this time, quite a few years ago now. Louisa, did you want to come in? I know John mentioned High York.
Just to say, I mean, absolutely to echo what John said, there are so many fantastic options, and as you have said yourself, Darryl, can be quite a daunting experience. I'm sure most of our school leavers now are in the good process of making decisions. They'll have hopefully made applications, but in the last week, of course, things might have changed. Just to say that I think one of the most important things is making the right choice for you. So you might have a specific career in mind, and so you might know you want to do a specific Btech at college, or you want to go to a specific place, and that's great. But there might also be some young people who still don't know what to do for a career. That's absolutely fine. There are still lots of ways to look at how you make a good choice based on what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and then looking at where you can do those things as well. And I suppose I would, speaking with my impartial hat on, you can also consider there are other options that might be outside of the city of York, in looking into North Yorkshire, particularly based on where you live, that you might like to consider as well. So do remember that there's a lot of options out there, but of course we are here to be able to help you to make those decisions if you need that help now.
Brilliant, thank you ever so much. Unless anybody else wants to come in on this point, we'll move on to the next theme, which is what if you didn't get your grade? So I know I see a lot of chopping and changing, but if the grades that you've been given don't quite meet your expectations or what you want, or meet the what you needed to achieve to get into various settings, where do you go next? And John, I don't know, would you mind starting off on that question?
Yes, thanks, Darryl. Well, obviously, it's been as you mentioned in your introduction, a results period like no other that we've experienced, really, and none of us have had any kind of experience of a similar situation before. We've had changes in the process of awarding grades, and obviously nobody actually took any final exams this year, despite in some cases, particularly in the case of the Btechs, where the results are coming out now, doing some ongoing assessment and external assessment on the way through. We don't want to get into the rights or wrongs of that and everything that's going on around that. But at the end of the day, the first thing is that if you are concerned about the grades you've been given, or unhappy with them, or you want to talk about them a bit more, the first thing to do is to go to where you were studying, to the school or college where you were before, and speak to them. Every year, not just this year, but every year, people miss the grades that they need to go on to their next destination, whether that's a university or whether it's a course at an FE college. Okay, so some things do stay the same, and there will always be people who are disappointed by exam results. And every year, schools and colleges work with a significant minority of young people who are in that position. So the things that you need to do in that case, if you've got an offer of a place somewhere, or you were expecting to get the grades that would get you onto a particular course and you haven't, is get in touch with that destination institution, because they'll be able to talk to you about whether or not, given where you are, you can follow that option, or whether they can provide you with another one which is linked to or similar, or will allow you to move on to that one in time. And as we said at the start, there are a huge range of options out there. And as Louisa has also said, it's by no means unusual for people not to have the first idea about what they ultimately want to end up doing at this stage. And so some kind of further conversation about what your options are and really developing some understanding of that is going to be pretty useful. So all of the institutions that are here tonight, they've got guidance teams who are available. If your destination was lined up to be with them, get in touch and they can help you out. Similarly, if you were going to progress to the next level at school, get in touch with them. And if you are then looking for some support around apprenticeships, obviously we've got the York Apprenticeships Hub online, but the council also has a number of learning and work advisors who can provide independent careers advice and guidance, and they're based at 30 Clarence Street in York, and their contact details are readily available through the Family Information Service, that's FIS@york.gov.uk, and their telephone number, and you can call them if you'd like to make an appointment to discuss your options, is a York number. It's a landline because, like me, they're fairly old, and it's 55400.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, John. Just before we move on to the next broad theme, Ruth on Facebook has asked if colleges could, if colleges could advise when they'll be announcing their start dates. That we have many children and young people with learning difficulties and/or EHCPs who need to be prepared for starting college, and how that might look. Not knowing is proving difficult for them. I don't know, would Lee or Sandra?
Yep, if I can take that if you want. So our start dates are published on our website. So, external facing, so they're all published on there in terms of term dates, start dates and things. And I suspect most providers are the same. The website is the go-to place in terms of finding out the term dates. There has been a little bit of movement, certainly for us, with COVID. So we did push the start date back a bit actually. So there might be some changes, but I suspect providers have now published those. So.
Thanks, and Lee is nodding, so I assume similar.
Same for us. The majority of our students will be coming back from the 7th of September. Students will receive an individual invitation to tell them when their first day is and what to expect from the time they're with us.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next theme, it's Btech Results, and I guess again probably to Sandra and Lee, is when will students who have sat Btech courses, when will they get their results?
I start because mine's quite quick actually. We're not really a Btech organisation actually, so we do City and Guild, thank God, in some ways. So we actually only have one Btech course that we're still awaiting results for, and that's not at the York site. So at the moment, all the results are in for ours.
So we're expecting Btech results by the end of the week and not later than the 28th of August. And where we've got them before then, which we might have in a small number of cases, we'll be issuing them to students. At York College, it affects about 60 students, and we're already in touch with those individuals.
Right, thank you. I know I sat a Btech, but I can't quite remember what it was in now. But then shows. our next theme is apprenticeship vacancies. Perhaps there's a question Bob wouldn't mind picking up, which is what sectors are likely to currently have apprenticeship vacancies?
Yeah, well, the sectors of the city have been affected employment-wise the same as everything else over the last 5 months. But certain sectors have continued almost unaffected, and certain sectors changed in terms of their need, particularly as we all saw within the kind of food, supermarket, supply sector. And that affected what those businesses were looking for in terms of apprentices. But certainly since July, we've seen the market pick back up again in terms of overall numbers, but it does look different to previous years due to the employment in those sectors. So we of course anticipated that hospitality, pubs, restaurants, some of the tourism, some of the leisure would continue to struggle, but there has been some increase now in apprenticeships as chefs, waiting staffs, baristas, in the hospitality, but it's not going to be to the volume of our previous years. So there has been an increase or a balance of change moving into anything associated with health and care, in pharmacies, in dental. There has been a good response in terms of trades and in the construction sector. And we continue to be strong, although small numbers, in anything associated with digital technology, social media marketing, online marketing, and actually that reflects how a lot of businesses have had to change in terms of how they're dealing with their relationships with their customers. So businesses needing those kind of support. So it's encouraging that it's returning. It's not to the volume it was same time last year. That's understandable. But all the vacancies are coming online. There's literally coming online each day at the moment, which is fairly normal at this time of year. And some of those apprenticeships, you could really be applying for them now and be in work in 3 or 4 weeks' time. It often works that quickly at this time of year. And that's why these options are an absolute option at this time, and why we have joined in with this options conversation today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Just leading on to that, we had a question: what can people do if there isn't an apprenticeship in an area that they'd ideally choose?
Well, part of that is to understand exactly what that job role is. We've been looking a lot at this recently, where one might want to do a particular marketing role in a particular sector, but actually manufacturing and construction businesses need to do marketing. So it's actually just looking at the commonality of the job roles that you want to do, but maybe looking at them in a different sector than perhaps you originally thought. So think about the job role rather than necessarily the sector of employment, and then use the search engines and look at the websites and look at the vacancies based on those job role types rather than a specific sector.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Sandra's raised your hand.
Just to sort of reiterate probably what's been said, but I mean, actually land-based has actually been, we've held our own in terms of vacancies and things like that. It's quite a buoyant industry. So just to say, if you're interested in land-based particularly, then do apply sort of for apprenticeships, because we do have vacancies and things. It's good.
Thank you so much. We've had another question online on Facebook from Anna. Is there anything being done specifically and proactively to help school leavers who have had and continue to have less support or structure than others may have to A, understand the choices they have, and B, make a decision and follow it through, and what they do next to avoid an increase in unemployment and inequality amongst young people in the city? Quite a broad question. John, are you happy to come in on that? Oh, we'll just unmute you.
So yes, we've got obviously some of our more vulnerable young people, those with special educational needs and disabilities in particular. They have targeted specialist advice, so they are the council provides specialist learning and work advisor support for those young people so that they can be supported into their next destinations. And quite often they've got long-term plans which are kind of mapped out 2 or 3 years in advance. So there's always quite a lot of work going on with those young people about smoothing their transitions over. Okay, now all of the schools will have their own kind of watch list, those pupils who they've been in touch with on a regular basis over the last few months, because they have all been in touch. We know that Year 11 pupils haven't been into schools because under the lockdown arrangements, they were not one of the year groups that were brought in, unless they were vulnerable children or the children of key workers. But schools have been in touch with kind of young people who were uncertain about what their destination was going to be when the lockdown came into place in March. All of the schools with Year 11 pupils do a tremendous amount of work in the first 2 terms of the year in terms of getting young people to identify where they are going to go. So all of the institutions, Askham, Bryan, York College and the schools have had open evenings for their sixth forms back in the autumn. They had taster days in the spring. They had opportunities to go and visit, did some interviewing for particular students for courses. So many people had their destination lined up before the schools closed to Year 11 back in March. But of course, as we said earlier on, there will be people who have missed grades, or who over the last few months have done some thinking and want to do something else, or equally are anxious or worried about their situation. And as we've said, all of the individual institutions who provide options for young people, they've got people who you can talk to there. We've got our learning and work advisors who you can talk to, and also through our family information service. If you've got other anxieties and worries, there are people who you can contact and get support and help from. And I just signpost people to the children and families pages of the council's website, because there's a wide range of links there which detail the help and the support that are available to young people.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Bob.
And yeah, in anticipation of this and working with it, we've strengthened the advice that is available. We've got a specific program called Future Goals at the moment, where we have advisors who can advise on that journey into the workplace. And also in working with Job Centre Plus, and they're increasing the number of advisors, which is part of a national campaign that recognises that there's going to need to be extra support. And there are a couple of additional opportunities of ways of getting into work experience as a result of that, that's going to be focused through that. There's going to be an increased opportunity of traineeships in the city, which are unpaid but help support that transition into the workplace. And then through the Job Centre as well, there's going to be engagement with the Kickstart opportunity of employers offering young people an opportunity to come into the workplace and get a good experience.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob, and I hope Anna, that helps answer that question. Our next question is quite simple. Hopefully, is what is T levels? And I think Lee, would you mind kicking us off on that?
Thanks, Darryl. So T-levels are a new type of qualification at level 3, so equivalent to A levels, and got a significant technical component and also a substantial work placement component, 45 days. So students undertaking T-levels can expect really high quality technical tuition. They can expect to spend some time in the workplace practicing the skills and applying the knowledge that they've gained. And then after that, they can expect to leave with a gold standard qualification at level 3, which will either give them a route direct into work or off to university, or indeed to a high level apprenticeship to carry on studying at level 4 and above. So brand new qualification from this year, available both in York College and at Askham Bryan in different fields, but a new type of technical qualification.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lee.
Confirmed, not land-based yet. So land-based actually has been delayed, sorry, Lee. Yeah, that's like 2022 now.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah,
Bob.
just Darryl, just to clarify, construction at York College, and it may be some distance away, but they do operate transport. They are starting the education and childcare one at Bishop Burton this year as well.
Thank you. Well, I hope that all covers off that particular point. Moving on to sort of a more broader topic, which is wider employment. I guess quite an open-ended one, which is what are employers looking for in applicants? And Laurence, I think, would you mind going first on this one? Is that okay?
Certainly, yeah. Well, we employ quite a lot of young people ourselves, and what we're looking for is a good work-ready attitude, really. And so, what does that mean? You know, enthusiasm, inquisitiveness, good timekeeping, and really, a good attitude to work. Work is it's a mutual contract, beneficial contract between employers and employees now. It's not like when I started, where you were beasted about the place. We need you as much as you need us, and I think we take great care to introduce you slowly into the workplace, and to ensure that we've got the right supportive environment around, be you an extrovert, an introvert, or what have you. And I think the only thing I'd probably say to you as well is that your career is, if you think of it as a marathon, not a race, not a sprint. I've had 3 or 4 careers in my time. I'm reaching the end of my working life, as opposed to where you guys or you people are coming in. And having those changes is great. And the experience that you have in your life of each stage of your life enriches the other bit. And so if you find that you've gone into something that you don't quite like, it's not a great crisis. You can retrain and move into something else throughout that career. So yeah, just a good attitude is what we're looking for. And working with a lot of young people, I find that the attitude is great. I have to say that it's better than when I was a child. So things ain't getting worse; they're getting better.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Laurence, and really positive to hear. Louisa, did you want to come in?
Yes, I did. Thank you. So there are some really good tools out there for when you're looking at careers. So everything Laurence said, absolutely correct. And there might be some skills that you need to do a specific job, or qualifications you need to do a specific job. But there are also lots of different skills that employers are looking for specifically. And what I wanted to do was recommend a really fantastic website, which is a government website called the National Careers Service. And you can look up different job sectors, you can look up specific jobs. It's really fantastic if you think you know what you might like to study at college or university, and then you're thinking, well, where does that take me next? And you might like to explore things. But what that website will give you is a really good idea about what you might be doing in that role. And as Laurence said, one of the sometimes easiest ways of looking at what kind of job you might like to do is sometimes rolling things out as well. So for example, I cannot imagine ever wanting to sit at a desk 5 days a week. Well, then you're thinking, well, maybe you're not looking at roles that might be admin based, for example. So sometimes it's easy to think what you don't want to do rather than what you do want to do. But that website, National Careers Service, gives you really comprehensive ideas about what kind of skills you might need. And those might be transferable skills. So, you might play in a football team or play a musical instrument, and that is actually gaining skills that could be really helpful in a job. So that kind of research, looking at websites like that, I think is one of the really good ways to find out a little bit more about how you are getting all the skills that you need to apply for jobs in the future.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Louisa. Going next to Ian.
Yeah. Thank you, Darryl. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, fine. Okay. I wanted to come in on grades because my A levels weren't good enough. Okay, I'm being, it's a frank confession time, but I got 2 A levels, and the third one was not a fail, but it was the equivalent of an O level at the time. And that didn't qualify me to do the kind of university courses I'd hoped I might do. So what I had to do was to find a way of going to what was then technical college and doing that third A level. And I worked during that year to help mum and dad keep me. I think they did pay something out actually, but I did make a contribution. Well, I did get that third A level, but the university places were for social workers or teachers, and those weren't on my list because I wanted to be some kind of engineer. And then I ended up quite by accident working shelf stacking at William Morrison's first shop. So that tells you something. And then I got a job with the local council, and then I moved to the civil service. And so about 7 years after my A levels, I actually was offered the possibility of going into computers. And that was the start of it for me. And it was a combination of kind of a traineeship, and the civil service supported me to get qualifications. But it did take some work, and you do need a sense of direction. It hadn't been helped by the fact that my mum and dad were splitting up in the middle of my teens. So my late teens were quite a difficult time for me and my brother and sister. Anyway, moving forward, the civil service sponsored me to do a higher national certificate. Then they sponsored me to do British Computer Society examinations, both parts 1 and 2, which were a professional examination. The part 2 was equivalent to a decent Bachelor of Science. And that was the start of the rest of my life, because it was that opened up so many more doors. And I'd never anticipated that. So what would I say to young people who don't get their grades? Don't lose hope. Find out what's on the table, what kind of employers are out there. And when you're in a job, work to develop training opportunities. So we're talking about employment. Laurence has just been talking about working with young people. And I must say, in computers, my career has been very much with people who've been quite a bit younger than me, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. But how do you get a job? And the first bit is to understand the company that you're working for, and also to go and to be able to handle the interview. And those 2 bits of research are the 2 key things to getting your face in front of somebody who will possibly offer you a job. And then the rest is up to you. I hope that helps.
Thank you ever so much, Ian. We'll go now to Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to echo what Laurence said. All the employers that I work with talk to me about the fact of the enthusiasm and attitude that recruits will bring. Remember, the employer wants it to be successful, so they're going to invest in the training and development to be able to do the job role. They know that you haven't got a CV of a career that fits that job role. They're willing to train you into that job role. So it's all about enthusiasm, attitude, ready to get in and get involved and learn on the job. And if you show those characteristics, most employers are very keen to take young people on and help develop their skills for them.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Bob, Ian, Louisa and Laurence. I think that we've covered that incredibly well for the last few minutes. I guess almost going back to you, Bob, what is the difference between apprenticeships, traineeships and the Kickstart scheme for those that are looking at all the options?
Yeah, sure. Apprenticeships, is one of the oldest models of getting into a job that humanity has. It's that master and apprentice, that passing on of that skill. It's just the modern version of that. So that just assumes that you're going to be in the workplace with people who can pass those skills on to you. So the fundamental point about it is that it is employed. It's a paid contract of employment to undertake a job, as supported though with the training in the skills, knowledge and behaviours to be successful in that job. And that's where it brings in what is nominally called a training provider to support that journey and programme through that apprenticeship. Now, most apprenticeships, well, all apprenticeships last greater than 12 months. Some can be up to 48 months, particularly in certain sectors. So it's all about that early career growth in skills and abilities to do a job. The traineeships, as I said earlier, they're an unpaid opportunity to get into the workplace and has to be supported by a training provider who helps with skills and qualifications to possibly and often top up from the school education system and enable them to be more employable, normally lasts 6 to 9 months. The Kickstart programme, as the Chancellor has introduced, is an opportunity to work with young people who may be struggling to get into the employment workplace. So he's incentivised employers with a financial subsidy to take on young people and give them a work experience. And as of yet, obviously, we're yet to start that programme in the country, and certainly not in York. That'll be starting into the autumn period of this year.
Thank you very much, Bob. I don't know if anyone wanted to come in on that at all. Or no, fantastic, brilliant. No, just checking all the hands. Our next point is on university, and will university give me the same experience and life skills as an apprenticeship? I guess, well, I'll start myself as a relatively recent graduate. This sort of time last year that I graduated from my undergraduate degree. And I think, obviously, undoubtedly gave me some different experiences. I'm not quite sure and haven't tested all the life skills yet that it may or may not have provided. But I think, obviously, knowing I went to a relatively small sixth form attached to a sort of comprehensive, not in York, but in Lincolnshire, and I know some of my sort of counterparts and friends who went on to do apprenticeships. Especially, I know one in particular with sort of with Power Station, another one with BAE Systems. Far in a way more successful than some of us that went to university. So I think absolutely, whilst it may give you different experiences and life skills, actually, when it comes to outcomes, there doesn't, or at least my sort of quite close experience, there doesn't seem to be too much of a difference at the moment. I don't know who I guess would like to come in on the difference between. Yeah, brilliant, Lee.
I guess one of the things that I would add is that try to think about this as a route to higher education, and of course there are lots of ways in which you might achieve high level qualifications that are now not just found in universities. And of course in our city we've got two fabulous universities in both York St John and the University of York, but both colleges have got university centres too, offering qualifications beyond level 4 up to level 6 and at postgraduate level. And Bob, of course, would also remind us to think about those higher level apprenticeships as well, that give you a route to a degree level qualification whilst at all times you're earning and you're likely to be sustained in employment. So I think that there's a really good opportunity to think here about higher education rather than just the type of provider and what sorts of ways in which you learn suit you best. Is earning important to you, or just perhaps the learning part of it? Do you know what sort of career you want? So I think this is a really good territory to spend a bit of time thinking about before making decisions that might conform to, I guess, traditional routes, because the opportunities now are really, really broad and actually really exciting.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Sandra?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Lee's just said, actually, I think it is an exciting time at the moment. There's lots of opportunities. There's graduate apprenticeship schemes now, higher level apprenticeships. There's lots of options. Right from level 2, sort of, right up to level 7 now in terms of masters. So do look at the options. In terms of apprenticeships, and there's very different types of sort of studying now. You can study 1 day a week, you can study on blocks, you can just study on distance learning. We've all jumped into the sort of blended learning approach. And I certainly think apprenticeships particularly have embraced that. We certainly have, because we're a national provider of a lot of apprenticeships. So, to be able to do it virtually is certainly easier. So I think I would say there are lots of options out there. So do explore your options.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sandra. Bob.
Yes, both Sandra and Lee have said it. Unfortunately, it's just there's not an awful lot of volume of those degree apprenticeship opportunities in our region. There are other regions in the country where there has been much greater growth, but I can assure you we're working as hard as we can to encourage more employers to engage with it. I'm really pleased. I've worked with a tiny employer who's just posted online this morning their degree apprenticeship opportunity. So we just need more, and Laurence might want to come in on this, we need more employers to be engaging in this so that there are more opportunities. So we have to change that conversation of the stereotype of you go to university full time. There is absolutely the opportunity now to undertake that undergraduate study, but as part of a degree apprenticeship. We've got both providers in our city who can support that. And I'm really pleased that a lot of the very well-known businesses in York have been offering that over the last few years. Unfortunately, with the timing of this year, quite a number of those employers offer those vacancies and go through their recruitment process at the back end of the year and into the early part of the year. So those candidates already know that they've got their offer. So there will be limited vacancies at this time. But it will be a very active conversation for the next year groups from the school and FE sector when we go through the autumn period and into next year.
Thank you so much, Bob. Laurence, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think Bob's quite a firebrand amongst the chambers of commerce in York, and we've got a lot of companies very interested in alternate ways of employing young people around the place at the moment. And I think once you've got your qualification or your skill set, as an employee, you don't really look at those qualifications so much. It's whether people can do the job, and I know you need to get the qualification so you can do the job, but it's think of it as a hurdle to go over. So whether you have a formal qualification, I went to a polytechnic, which was a sort of a low-end university at the time, because there were no jobs, because we had a big recession on. And that's sort of how I built mine. Other friends went to academic universities. Others went to had their apprenticeship schemes at the time. There's an awful lot of really good courses out there and methods to get where you need to go to that'll suit your lifestyle, your character set, and your academic or capability. And as we've heard from John, there's some great advice out there from the council on choosing those individual methods as well. But yeah, there's a lot of companies now in York who are looking at some of these alternate routes and apprenticeships and funding to get young people in. So keep your eye out for those. Obviously, we've been a bit hit by COVID recently, and many companies are in recovery mode and trying to survive. But we are. Even in the hospitality sector in York, we are seeing it pick up a bit now. So it won't be long before, fingers crossed, most companies are back on track and fully recruiting again.
Thank you so much, Laurence. That's great to hear. Finally, on this question, John, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just briefly, just to really reinforce what people have been saying, and I think that Bob and the team. Now within the council, we've got a group of people, and it's good to hear about Laurence saying that Bob's out there shaking people up in the chamber and things to get more employers doing this. But we have got a focused hub which supports young people and supports employers, which is great, because when the council first started getting engaged in an apprenticeship program itself, and promoting apprenticeships around about 10 years ago. You know, I was there and I was actually the only bloke in the council with apprenticeships on his job description, so I had to do it. And you know, some of our first rung of apprentices that we took on as 16 and 17-year-olds then are still in the council in very high grade jobs. You know, I can think of an example in our ICT services team, you know, where one of the managers there started as an apprentice with us 10 years ago. We've got an apprentice working with us in the skill. We've got somebody working with us in the skills team who I first met as a 17-year-old nearly 10 years ago. And, you know, she does a great job for us managing the ESF Future Goals programme that Bob referred to. And the final thing I'd say is that I think, you know, we have to go back to what Lee said about route ways and pathways through education and ways into academic study. Okay, and there are more now than ever there were before. So the advice and guidance is really important, but we need to sort of look at some of what are the most high status jobs in our country that people aspire to, and they are actually practical vocations. Okay, they are vocational. Doctors, you know, a medical degree is actually an apprenticeship where you don't get paid until the final year when you're out in hospital. Okay, so there's something that, you know, people need to get hold of, is that these issues about status and vocational and academic and apprenticeship and degree and all of those things, you know, you need to look at where you want to go and what is going to get you there, and just pick the route that is right for you. And now when we do events, or when we have been doing events at West offices, goodness alone knows when we'll do the next one, but you know, we regularly get 300 or 400 young people coming along to see employers, and we'll have 20, 30 employers there, and there will be law firms, accountants, you know, all sorts of professions in there, alongside you know, lots of other opportunities. And again, you know, you just think, right, okay, everybody starts at the bottom. Ian started at William Morrison, and it is not unusual for the chief executive of a major supermarket chain to have started out there straight from school stacking shelves.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, John, and yeah, really, really positive. Ian, do you want to come in on that?
Yes, you talk about the chief executive. Actually, it was Ken Morrison. It was his pet store, and he would come round and he would just make sure that everybody was stacking the shelves exactly right, and they'd mark the prices on properly, because it was before modern labelling and everything else. So that was a real eye-opener for me. I just wanted to talk about the difference between an apprenticeship and an undergraduate qualification. Apprenticeship, you've lived in the real world for a bit, and if you want to go on and do a degree from that, actually that's something that's really welcomed by university admissions tutors, because most people who've lived in the real world for a bit know how to organise their lives. They know how to be there at 9 o'clock when the first lesson starts, and they know they're still going to be there at 5 when the last one finishes, or whatever. And they also know a bit more about behaviour. So they are welcomed by universities, and that kind of work ethic that you get is something that you can transfer to your studying. As a company, the company that I formed not long after I'd kind of left the civil service and gone to private enterprise, we employed 3 A-level school leavers on HNC courses, and we kept them on for, I think it was 2 years. And they left, and they've all gone on to have good careers. And when that company, when I left it and moved on to something else, eventually, in my late 30s, I went to university to do what was going to be a postgraduate diploma. Well, I must have enjoyed it and done a really good project because I loved it. And at the end of that time, they gave me a master's degree. And at that point, I'd arrived. So, you know, it can happen to you. Don't lose heart. Keep looking at the options and keep finding out what could be done, because it's not impossible.
Thanks, Ian. I think just to, obviously we're just shy of 10 minutes left. I was just thinking if anyone had any sort of tips or advice for young people. I mean, we started out by obviously acknowledging just how stressful a time this period usually is and how COVID-19 has made it that much harder. But it's just really if anyone has any, you know, whether it's passed down from teachers that you've had or you know, wise words from anyone else on how to really get through this period. Bob, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I've been engaging in an awful lot of conversation over the last couple of months with employers, and certainly you're going to possibly have to be prepared for online interviewing and online processes to engage in opportunities. And actually, we found that some young people are more comfortable with that than possibly the stress of getting themselves to an unknown building, to an unknown reception, to then be confronted by people they've never met before in an interview. But definitely be prepared for a world in the future of more online selection and online interviewing.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Bob. A real practical one. Sandra.
Yeah, I'd agree on that, but don't be scared. I think I would say to the young people, you know, that we will help, and we've got, you know, videos on how to do Teams, how to do Zoom, you know, and things like that. So, you know, don't worry. And, you know, most of it we can do through a mobile phone, you know, so if they don't have access to equipment or things, or we can, again, through bursaries and things, get people equipment that they might need to be able to access online learning. So I think probably a message from probably all the providers is, do something, which is apply for whatever. If you need advice, there's advice out there. Every provider will give you independent careers advice. So, you know, the best thing is to do something, you know, and apply for things. And then, you know, after that, I'm sure providers can signpost you if say Askham Bryan isn't appropriate, then we can signpost you on. But the first step is the biggest step, and you know, do something.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sandra. Louisa, and then Lee. Thanks.
So my biggest piece of advice is start now when you're looking at you're starting, you might be starting college or sixth form or apprenticeship, and you want to get stuck into that, especially after what's been a really tough time. I've been spending the last 2 days in a sixth form in North Yorkshire, and I've been chatting to year 13 students who are preparing for their post-18 options, and I've been really amazed at how positive they all are, how they've coped, some of the amazing volunteering and things that they've done during lockdown as well. And actually on that, lockdown and what we've all had to go through is probably, and I don't know if others would agree, is it's always probably going to be now an interview question on an interview panel for uni. People are going to be interested to know how you found lockdown, what you did, and thinking and relating back to how you found that time, how you found independent study, how, you know, if it was a struggle. Of course, you know, a lot of people found it difficult, including people like me who had to suddenly work from home and not be around people anymore as well. So not just you. But start now, be realistic about what your options are. So if you found, I don't know, you want to be an astrophysicist, but you don't want to leave your village where you live, then be realistic about not being able to do those things and where you can go and how you can do it. And then also my project is FutureHY. We are based in York and North Yorkshire, and we have outreach assistants. We've got someone based at York College, we have someone based at Askham Bryan College. We also work in the schools around York. So we have a website, futurehy.co.uk, which is an impartial website with information for young people, information for teachers, carers, information for parents as well. And we want to make sure all of that information on there. Please go and check it out if you're just looking at all the options are and all the information, and we have outreach assistants that you can talk to as well. Some of us also have careers qualifications, so we can have a conversation with you. You can get in touch with us either through the colleges or schools, or you can get in touch with us directly as well, and I would really encourage you to do that, because I know it's been such a tough time, and some of you might just need a little bit more time and want to make sure that we can help you through that. So I suppose that's a little plug from me really, but hopefully we're there and we can help you if you need it.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Louisa. And I didn't even think about it being an interview question. I think you only need to look at my recycling boxes to see how I've coped with lockdown. But on that, going to Lee.
Thanks, Darryl. The one thing I would say to students, once you've listened to all that we've said this evening, you've made that decision and got onto that course, wherever it might be, don't be afraid of saying, I think I got that wrong. It's really, really important. If you get into studying a subject at the next level, if it's an A level, it may feel very different to how it felt at GCSE. If it's a vocational subject, it might be something you're studying now for the very first time. Or if you're in an apprenticeship, it might not be quite the industry you thought it was. It's really, really important you have that conversation very, very early on with your school, college, your training provider, whoever it is. All of us will be wanting to support you to get that decision made again and to get you into the course that is right for you. And I always say to our students, I'd rather be having a conversation with you about swapping than I would about dropping. And that's a really, really important message. And that applies to anything else that might happen to you during the time that you're on that course. So if it's starting to get a bit expensive for you to get there, or you didn't realise there's all this extra equipment you needed, or whatever it might be, your provider, school, college, training provider, whoever it might be, will have a way of supporting you through that difficulty. We're not just about churning out qualifications, we're about creating successful futures. And the most important thing I think we do collectively is generate a certificate that you can put down on the ground, stand on as a stepping stone to go to that next place. And therefore, anything that we can do along that journey is really important. So my plea to students all the time is that I really, really would rather talk to you about swapping than dropping. But despite how brilliant we all are across our institutions, none of us are psychic, and therefore do talk to us about those challenges as they might emerge. And don't feel any decision you've made last week or in the coming week is a decision that you're stuck with permanently.
Thank you ever so much, Lee. Just before we wrap up, so where we've got 2 minutes left of this live stream, Ian, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. I think what you've just heard Louisa and Lee say are tremendously important. And the most important thing in my life and my career is, don't be afraid. If you've made a mistake, you'll soon know. But don't just walk away from it immediately. Think about how you might recover from it. Talk to somebody about how you might recover from it, and just look at the options again. So, sudden actions often are more risky than actually just sticking there and working out how to get out of it. So good luck with that.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And just before we finish, I've just had Bob want to come in.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we've been running a session from 2 o'clock this afternoon where we're posting advice and guidance on all of the options and current vacancies, and we're running that through till 8 p.m. We'll be available online to answer any further questions up until then. Well, and afterwards, we don't stop there, but this is a specific focus. So just search for York Apprentices on our Facebook or on our Twitter feed, and we'll be hanging around to answer any questions.
Thank you ever so much, Bob. With an eye on time, obviously we've got on my clock 1 minute left. So I'm just going to draw everything into a close. I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who's asked a question today, whether live on Facebook or in advance. And it's been really, really valuable to hear your views, and we'll continue to hold these Facebook Live Q&As on important subjects in the future. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of our panelists for giving up a chunk of their evening tonight and offering some of their really valuable insight. I really hope that you've enjoyed tonight, and we'll be back next week with another live Q&A focusing on young people's return to school, and that will be on Wednesday, the 2nd of September. Anyone watching this, either live or after, please continue to leave your comments and questions in the chat, and the team at City York Council will try and monitor and get back to you on your questions over the next 24 hours. And finally, thank you ever so much for everyone joining us tonight, and I hope you all have a great evening.